The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
Let's go! What's It's gonna be a football game tonight now. No doubt. It's gonna be a football game here. Okay. I done been here before. All right, let's go, baby.
9. Rushing 4, ball comes out of the hands of Newton. It's on the ground, and it's still on the ground. Picked up by T.J. Ward at the 4-yard line. Vaughn Miller did it again.
Alabama back on top of the college football world.
Ladies and gentlemen, football to the max.
Your host, Sean Garmer, Gary Vaughn, and Randy Isbell.
Hello and welcome to another Football to the Max. Sorry we are a day late. We started the wrestling show so late the previous night. Both of us had to work kind of early in the morning, and we were just like, look, let's just maybe do this a little bit differently and do it on Tuesday. Of course, I'm your host, Sean Garmer, with me here, Mr. Gary Vaughn.
Hey, how's it going?
Randy is still on his sabbatical, but we're getting good news that he might be coming back soon, so that's always great. Of course, the show much better when, Randy is around, and, always, he hasn't been able to be on as much as we wanted him to, but when Mike has been able to be on, he's been great as well. Just want to say that. We appreciate Mike being able to be on and help us out. But sometimes it's just he has 2 jobs now, and it's kind of hard for him to be able to be around on our schedule sometimes. So, we kind of either we do the show, or we don't. So we just have to take the position of we got to do the show.
Yeah, I mean, both those guys are really cool guys, and I definitely appreciate them. They always make this show better, and Mike's definitely been an awesome guy in helping us out, and we miss Randy, and we're excited about him getting back. So when the crew gets back together, it's going to be a good day.
Certainly going to be a good day. Obviously, here's what we're going to do. We obviously know that college football is now. This is going to be Wednesday morning by the time you guys are hearing this. We'll still do the Thursday night, Friday morning show, so don't worry about that. But college football is now really old, and NFL is on that border of you probably don't care about going through these games that already happened. We're already into Wednesday. You're thinking about waiver wire stuff and already kind of got your mindset on this week coming up. So we're going to kind of just do a more regular show that we do sometimes in the off season, kind of talk about some news that's going on, which we have a couple of big news items, depending on your thought process on big, I guess. But and then we'll also we'll go through some of our, hit some little highlights of our top 25 poll and some of the power rankings, and we'll also kind of do takeaways. Like, we'll still go through some of the games here, but we'll do them in a different fashion, I guess, than just, this is what happened, and what do you think, and all this. We'll maybe do it in more of a question sort of format. Anything that kind of we're thinking about, anything we took from the games over the weekend, and then moving forward, what that means for whether it's college or whether it's NFL. So without further ado, let's get into this. Of course, probably the biggest story that's been going around It's one you don't really want to talk about, especially during the season when everything's about football and all this stuff. It's this story with kicker Josh Brown. He obviously, his wife and him had a domestic situation. He allegedly violated his restraining order and also allegedly, he has actually signed a document which admits that he physically, verbally, and emotionally abused his wife, Molly. I guess they're divorced now because his then wife is what's being used in the news report. He was saying that he was going to go get help and go to rehab for this, and then the Giants decide to release him. And obviously, I think for the most part, this has kind of been met with, hey, this seems to be a positive reaction from the release, and also he was being put on the commissioner's exempt list anyway, so he wouldn't have been able to play. How do you feel about this? Do you think the Giants made the right call? Do you think that he kicks in the league again? Obviously, kickers are a dime a dozen, and a lot of times you have kickers that go bad, and many times you go and try to find experience. And let's say this is a year or two down the road. Do we see him come back? Somebody says, "Oh, Josh Brown was a pretty good kicker when he was around."
I think it all depends on Josh Brown. I think it depends on how serious he takes getting into some programs, getting some help, finding some people that can vouch for him that are credible. I don't know if he's a religious person or if he has any organizations that he likes to be a part of, but those are the kind of things I would be doing, being around those kind of people. If I was religious, I'd attend a church, have a pastor, have people there in leadership, kind of back me up. If I love PETA or, if I love, saving the wild forest, wilderness, or whatever they do, go do that. Make sure people see you, make sure people get to know you, and then prove to the NFL that you are what you say you are. You can't do it just by sitting at home and saying, "Oh, I'm good now. I'm solid." You can't do that. And I think if he does that, I think definitely you'll see a team maybe come out and say, "Hey, Josh Brown, our kicker's hurt," or we got stuck with a kicker who we really don't care for. We think you're better now. Would you be willing to come and play for us? I think that's very valid. You've seen kickers that have had some issues. Mike Vanderjack's a guy that kind of had a few issues, and other teams were willing to go pick him up because of his talent. And I think Josh Brown's the same, but it's up to him if he's going to do that and if he's going to give people the right vibes to come try to take him on.
Yeah, I do think that at some point, because kickers are so sometimes sought after, it seems to be a revolving door of, okay, what veteran name kicker can we get now? And they just keep getting put back in the league. Every time you think, oh, well, we won't see him again, you hear his name come up again. And I think in a way this is cool for Robbie Gould because he got the shaft in Chicago. After being a guy that they had relied on so much, he was their number one point getter for a long time in Chicago. And then, because of money and because he had a bad year, and sometimes that happens with kickers. But at least he's getting another shot now with the Giants. I do hope that Josh Brown gets to rehab himself and that he learns from this. And it sucks that a family was broken because of something that happened. We all have those situations where you have to control it, and you get angry, you get upset, but there's always that line, and sadly he crossed it, and I think the NFL, they did what they had to do, and the Giants kind of did what they had to do too. I think this isn't just a PR thing. I think it's just there's too much here. Like, what if you have more stuff come out that it was even worse, or whatever, pictures, and he's sitting there playing and making, money more. Still, even kickers make more money than most people, and it's sad. It's sad to hear this happening, but in a way, I don't think that the league or the Giants are wrong here.
No, I don't think so. And, like you said, I mean, this is a sad situation, and, hopefully he gets his life right and figures this out. But it shows that the people that you least expect do these type of things actually do them. And so many times, women are afraid to come forward because they're afraid that no one's going to believe them and they're going to be in more trouble. And I would have never imagined that Josh Brown would be a guy that would have these kind of issues, and it happened. So, we have to understand that this is a very real situation, and, understand, the sorrow that comes along with it.
Yeah. I mean, I just hope people can be mature about this and not. I'm sure, the jokes will be made and whatever, but this is a serious subject. This is a thing that's affecting our society as a whole. And it's sad because, now you have that commercial that's rather, man, this is a bit much, but it does happen, that whole, that's not love commercial that's going around now and all that. That's crazy, but it's kind of one of those, you never think about things like that till sometimes it gets put in your face or these stories happen. So, hopefully we don't have to face a story like this with the NFL the rest of the season, because it always sucks, to have to be talking about this instead of talking about the games. And another sad thing we got to talk about is Arian Foster, who went down, he went down in week 2, and he just he didn't want to have to go through another rehab and another just getting ready to go and coming back and having an injury-plagued season. So he decided at 30 years old to retire. And so Arian Foster, who at one point was one of the best, running backs in the league. He was a 4-time Pro Bowler and is out of 5 seasons. Since 2010, with any player with a minimum of 1,000 touches, he is first in yards from scrimmage per game with 115 and 100-yard rushing edge with 31. And he's tied for the lead in touchdowns from scrimmage with 65. And he ranks second per game in average rushing yards with 84.7. So, yeah, I thought he had an awesome statement where he talks about, I've loved to learn every facet of this game, from the peak of accomplishments to the gutter of criticism, and it all makes the ride worthwhile. I've been fortunate enough to play many successful years in this league. I've given a lot to this game and given up a lot for it. But it's returned to me more than I could ever ask for. Faceless gladiators have been shuffled in and out of this arena for decades, and I'm proud to have taken part in that legacy. My father's always said, you'll know when it's time to walk away. It has never been more clear than right now. I'm walking away with peace. I know it's not commonplace to do it mid-season. My body just can't take the punishment from this game asked for any longer. Every athlete would love to go out as Super Bowl MVP, riding off in the sunset with the crowd cheering your name. Unfortunately, life has other plans, and they're usually opposite of the imagination. But that imagination got me this far, and I could not be prouder of the things my teammates and I have accomplished in this game. I don't know, you could have said any better, really.
Yeah, and you feel for the guy. Arian Foster had a lot of potential, and in the short term, that he had an opportunity to play in this league. He did a lot of impressive things. You could see the ability, see the fact that he was a guy that could have been one of the greats, but, sadly his body couldn't hold up. And, it's just the fact of life. It doesn't always work out the way you want it to work out. And sometimes the best athletes, can't always continue on as long as the other athletes that maybe they are still, associating themselves with. So I feel bad for him, but I'm so glad that he made the decision to finally walk away while he still can, because his body was taking huge punishment. And I feel like if he would have forced the issue, he may be in, bigger, problems down the line. I think that's kind of, I'm trying to say that the right way, but I just think down the line he would have had more issues than he already has. And so now he can actually maybe go do other things and still be athletic, still do the things he wants to do, just not on the scale of the NFL, which takes a toll on your body. And especially on a running back. Running backs, even if they stay healthy most of their career, making 30 years old is a tough task to ask one of those guys to do. So, I'm happy for the guy, but sad too at the same time.
Yeah, it is sad to see him have to go out because he obviously wanted to play more years. I mean, going out at 30, obviously Calvin Johnson just did that, but going out in a way you don't want kind of always sucks, And I mean, Arian Foster got to leave a mark on the game, and that's more than a lot of players can say they did. That's something.
Yeah.
So we get out of talking about sad news here to talking about some teams. We'll get into the college stuff in a little bit, but amid all this stuff here, the Jets, they make a quarterback change, Gary, and then Geno Smith goes down with a torn ACL. And so you're back to Ryan Fitzpatrick. He leads them, and they wind up beating the Ravens, who just couldn't get things done there in the second half at all. Joe Flacco throws 2 interceptions. I mean, this is kind of one of those, Ryan Fitzpatrick didn't have the nicest things to say in the press conference either. He said he was pissed off. There's talk of Bryce Petty. There's talk about Christian Hackenberg. You are 2-5. Fitzpatrick says he wants to start the rest of the season. Let's say you get to 4-5. I mean, do you still get to that point where we should start Bryce Petty, we should start Christian Hackenberg, or as long as you don't lose for a while, you keep starting Fitzpatrick?
Yeah, I think Fitzpatrick's the guy for you right now. You paid the money to have him on this roster, and you got him for a reason, right? And that's to continue winning games. And yes, he did not start this year out. That they've had a lot of problems, and I don't know if he's the complete problem. He is part of the problem. The interceptions show that, and so I kind of feel like he needs to own up to his own failures. But at the same time, I kind of feel for him. He thinks that, man, they're just blaming me for all their problems, which quarterbacks always get anyway. He should understand that, being one that's been in the league forever. I don't know. I think he made a dumb decision when it came to calling out the owner, the coaches. I think it's dumb because, you want to have a good relationship with those guys. They are controlling what you're going to do. But on the other hand, he's so old. He's kind of like, those old people, in general, old people get away with whatever they want to get away with, right? I go into a restaurant and tell everyone they suck. And oh, no. And I don't, even, let's just say, even if he had a good year, I doubt he still gets some of the Jets because they can't afford him. They're paying that defense. They can't afford him. And he's playing this year to prove to other teams that he is worth the money. And this is not going about it the right way. In fact, this is hurting himself, and he just lowered his pay grade by doing this. Because who else is going to want to go and get him and then have him talk about the coaches or the owners that way? I know a lot of GMs out there don't want that headache. So there you go. I think he just kind of hurt himself in a way, and maybe this means he will retire or he'll take a low pay cut and go be a backup somewhere. I don't know.
I mean, to be fair, if you look at their schedule, Gary, aside from when they have to play the Patriots twice here, once after Thanksgiving and then the one on Christmas Eve, they have a decent schedule. I mean, they have a really nice schedule. You're talking about they got the Browns this week, the Dolphins, the Rams, then you get the Patriots. You get the Colts, the 49ers, the Dolphins again. I mean, you could do some damage. Now, obviously, you got to hope the AFC kind of keeps trading blows and not doing well, and you only have, say, New England rising ahead of the pack and everybody else kind of all jumbled together. But, okay, let's say you go on a 3-game win streak before you get to the
They still have that ability to do well. It could definitely land in their favor. And, I'm jumping the gun. I'm talking about right now with Fitzpatrick. I think he could improve himself still. Let's be honest, the year is still early. We're not, playoff time yet, so let's don't jump ahead of ourselves. But I just think at the moment, he was selling a bad, sell himself off in a bad way. And, looking at this Jets team does have that opportunity. You're right, Sean. They could still make the playoffs. They could still do some things in this division. I'm not selling them short for that. I just, it makes you wonder, with all the controversy, all the issues they're having, are they going to take that, or are they going to lose the momentum because of, all the controversy?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't think they'll lose momentum. I think you still got the problem of, look, you got no Eric Decker. Your running game is what it is. It's still not really been able to produce a whole lot. Your defense is not what it once was. Let's be honest. They aren't the, shut them down Jets team. People are able to throw on them. And they have been, and they will probably continue to do so. This is a problematic thing for the Jets because I think, how many would you say? If they lose one more before the Patriots, definitely that's it. Just might as well start Bryce Petty or Christian Hackenberg at that point.
Yeah, I mean, you could say that, and that's fine, and maybe so. Maybe after that outburst of Fitzpatrick, maybe you say, you know what? If we're going to technically be out of this thing and it's going to be too hard for us to catch up, I agree wholeheartedly. Yes, you go ahead and grab one of those guys, put them in, and see what they got. This is the best time, especially if you're not going to the playoffs. This is the best time to get into that mode of, hey, this is our preseason. We're going to see what we can get out of these guys. I've always had that moniker because I really feel like if you're not going to do anything, well, let's be progressive. Let's not just hang around until the end of the year. We don't even know if that's the case, though. I mean, I hate to jump the gun on that and actually say that. But, yes, if it comes to a point where they're not going to make the playoffs or not going to do anything, yes, I do it.
I mean, speaking of that same thing here with looking at another AFC team, the Miami Dolphins were able to pull off a big, I wouldn't say it's a good division win at home. Jay Ajayi goes over 200 yards again. I think he's only the 4th player ever to go consecutively over 200 yards. Ricky Williams being one of those guys, and O.J. Simpson being another guy. I mean, do you have any kind of belief in the Dolphins that they finally figured out something, or have they just been getting lucky with Ajayi? Or, I mean, do you think we're finally getting to see the Dolphins we thought we might see?
I'm so afraid to say that because I really don't know if that's the case. I think that this is a team that has definitely hit lightning in a bottle. And I think that they've gotten a few good things right. But at the end of the day, it's so hard for me to jump on the bandwagon and really be sold that this Dolphins football that we're going to see on a consistent basis. I don't know that for a fact. And I think that Ajayi's had some great games, but I still question if that's going to happen because, once again, people are watching tape, people are going to see things, and they're going to try to, stop Ajayi for sure now. And so that could be an issue. But if he continues, I think that's awesome. I think Miami really expected Ajayi to be this type of player. So good for him. But I don't know. I'm still going to hold my reservations on if this is going to be the team going forward.
Certainly. I just, living here in Miami, you already know. You already know not to get your hopes up. The people here in Miami shouldn't, because you get your hopes up and they're bound to let you down. It's just bound to happen. Nothing from Ryan Tannehill still is convincing me here. Yeah, Kenny Stills looked good. He got over 100 yards. Yeah, he's finding his receivers or whatever. Yeah, the running game is kind of opening things up, but Ryan Tannehill's still not convincing me. He's still not doing anything. That's like you'd say, oh, this guy deserves to be the standout quarterback that gets paid all this money. It's been all Jay Ajayi the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, and that's all they needed really, and that's fine. I mean, hey, if it's working, by all means, go with it. And you're not taking the risk of throwing the ball. You're getting an opportunity to see a good running game. That's very solid. But once again, can they continue that? I don't know. That's my biggest question. I'm not sold that they can.
So, how much stock? I mean, this is so funny to me. How bad? I mean, we were talking about the complete opposite for the AFC South when we were hyping up. I mean, everybody was doing it, not just us. But like all the, we had all the writers on, and they were talking about the teams and all this stuff, and it's like two of these teams are 3-4. The Colts and Titans, they just played each other. The Colts won. Then you got the Houston Texans, who lost to the Broncos on Monday night, where Brock Osweiler looked terrible, as we thought he would. And they're 4-3 somehow. And the Jaguars are 2-4. And they keep looking really bad. And they looked bad at home against the Raiders, too. And if there was one team Blake Bortles should have looked good against, it's a team that can't stop anyone. The Raiders, I don't know what to make about this AFC South. I mean, I feel like it's a total crapshoot every week. I feel like the AFC South is the NFC East of last year.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you really feel that way, and I don't blame you at all for feeling that. I mean, it has been not as good as we expected. I think when we came into this year, if I'm not wrong, all three of us really picked this division as being one of the best in football. I mean, they had so much potential. We saw how much that they had added. We thought Tennessee was going to be having one of the most killer running games. They were going to have a decent defense. Jacksonville was going to build upon what they did last year. We thought they were going to be a juggernaut. Indianapolis was going to grow. Even heck, Houston was supposed to be even better with Lamar Miller and some of their additions. So all these teams really kind of let us down in a way. And the one division we all talked bad about was the NFC East, and they're all winning. It's weird. It's really, really strange.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, this is just absolute craziness that the NFC East is a total 180 from last year, and then you have the AFC South, the division that everybody goes, oh man, can't wait to watch these teams, and just nothing on that point, nothing. I do think that like at some point with Osweiler continuing to be the way he is, I don't even know who Houston has. Sort of revenge game, I guess. But how many more losses? Let's say they lose a couple more in a row here.
Oof. That's really tough to say. That really, really is tough to say because of the fact that, Brock Osweiler was your big money guy. And I just don't know if you can give up on him. I just don't. You spend so
players around saying, okay, we have terrific players in every spot. They just lost an offensive lineman. I think he tore both his tendons in his kneecaps or whatever it was. Gary, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it was his patella, both his patellas.
Yeah. Good God, that's terrible. Talk about not being able. Tom Savage is going to be your quarterback, and behind him, Gary, Brandon Wheaton.
Yeah. So how excited are you about that as a Houston Texans fan, people? I don't know. I know I would not be excited. I mean, I've had him on my team, and and he's not awful.
Tom Savage is real, according to some people. So.
Well, I mean, you could try the experiment. I mean, that's fine. Just don't be surprised if it's not everything you wanted,
Yeah, I mean, they do have a lot of talent. They have ways that they could cover for, okay, well, we've got freaking Tom Savage or Brandon Wheaton in here, and Brandon Wheaton can't throw the ball. It's just, even behind that great line, you just still having some problems, still throwing some interceptions, and other than not having a dynamic tight end, they got everything else. And I don't think you can really complain about that if you're Houston or if you're the Houston fans. I mean, you're looking at Brock Osweiler. It's like, man, we paid you $72 million to come over here, and you're losing this game. I mean, yeah, he won the game against the Colts, but it's like you're playing badly. You can't do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get it. And people want results now, and that's understandable. I mean, especially with the money you paid this guy. But I think they should have really knew what they were getting into, because this guy had not had that much experience before he, got into this situation. So now you're expecting everything under the sun from a guy that just has only had a little bit of experience. I mean, sure, he did great when he had it, but I just don't know. You got to live with it.
Certainly you do. That's one thing you got to live with it right now if you're Bill O'Brien, and try to make the best case scenario for your team. We were talking about the NFC East just a little bit ago, talking about those three teams that did play. Of course, the Giants won in London. It was a bad game. Talk about just, if you woke up for this one, hopefully you went to sleep again at halftime, because, let me tell you, that was something. The Redskins lose, and the Eagles end the Minnesota Vikings undefeated streak, Gary, and they win. Sam Bradford could not get vengeance on the Eagles. The Eagles are now, I think, 3-0 at home. They're undefeated over there at the Link. Carson Wentz had some interceptions. I think there was a period where, like, 5 plays you had turnovers. Back to back. It was crazy. But, I mean, what do you make of this NFC East now? You got the big matchup with the Cowboys and Eagles on Sunday night to kind of showcase that. Do you feel like, I mean, Cowboys, squeaky bum time, you got to worry about, hey, you got all these teams breathing behind you. You can't let up.
Yeah, you can't, and that's going to be very interesting, especially this Sunday night. The Cowboys have had a really good running game. That's what's propelled them into the success they've had, because their defense has had chances to rest. It's taken the pressure off the rookie quarterback, Dak Prescott. On the flip side, you've seen the Eagles, and the fact that Carson Wentz has been afforded, a chance to really get some confidence underneath him, because of the fact they played some teams that were not so good at the early part of this year. And his defense has really stepped up. I mean, they really, really have. You saw in this game against Minnesota, they needed to get in Sam Bradford's face. They needed to get to him, and they got to him 6 times. They sacked him, 12 quarterback hits. So you knew Sam Bradford was off balance all game long.
The offensive line is also very depleted.
Yeah, you're right. And that's the question I want to ask you. Is this Eagles team just that good, or was this Minnesota team just that one-sided where the defense is pretty much all they have?
The thing is, Sam Bradford wasn't making mistakes until this game. And I think it's one of those where you have to look at it and you go, they didn't lose all those linemen until just now, so I think you might be right on that. It is about the defense. The defense has had to make plays. They've had to put them in positions where Sam Bradford doesn't have to do a whole lot. When you're forced to make, you don't have an Adrian Peterson right now. Your offensive line's banged up. You're missing a lot of guys. You got Stephon Diggs and Kyle Rudolph, but then you kind of have to start questioning what else you got out there. And if they take away Diggs, I mean, look at who you're throwing to if you're Bradford. And it's a lot. And then Sam Bradford isn't the most accurate quarterback either. I mean, he has a great defense, but you guys still got to be really good at what you're doing. And yeah, I think this is what people talk about. Oh, people don't pay. You should get a skill position player. You should get this, whatever. This is why it pays to make sure you have good offensive linemen. You have great offensive linemen, because I think this is going to be a different game when you're talking about the Eagles and Cowboys on Sunday night. The Eagles, they're much more like the Vikings. Their offensive line's a bit depleted. And yeah, the Cowboys can't pass rush to save their lives right now, so that kind of works in their favor, but the Eagles' defense also hasn't faced an offensive line like this that's just, they're not going to back down. They're going to maul you. They're going to get through you. Remember the team that was supposed to be, the Packers were supposed to have this great defense, and the Cowboys just ran through them. So, let's see what happens when those two teams meet. It's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, it is, and I'm really looking forward to it. I really am. I think a lot of other people are too. To seeing what these teams bring, especially with the fact that the Eagles have been so impressive. Carson Wentz has been really good. I think at the end of the day, we're going to get a good matchup, and that'll be something we'll definitely be talking about this Thursday. But this whole thing with Minnesota losing in the fashion that they did, you got to give props to the Eagles for being ready and for coming into that game and for giving them hell. I mean, that's really what they did. So props to them. Minnesota will catch up, and I think they'll get their breath. But there you go.
And Vikings also play much better at home as well, just to point that out. A couple more things here. Oh, before we get out of that, there's a trade talks going on between the Eagles and 49ers right now for Torrey Smith. The Eagles obviously need help on offense on the receiver side, so this is a good pickup for them if they were to do it right.
Yeah, definitely. I'll talk about this Thursday, but that's the one thing that does not scare me if I'm the Dallas Cowboys, and that's the wide receivers of the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, yes, Green Beckham is fine. He's a speedy guy. He can get things done. But he's not the best. I mean, let's be honest. He was not the starting number one guy over there in Tennessee when he was there. He was just a utility player, made some, special plays. Kind of the same way he's doing in Philadelphia. He has not been just outstanding. Sure, he's done some good things, but he's not outstanding. If they add Torrey Smith, that gives them another guy that's speedy, a guy that actually can bolster that arsenal. And so if I'm the Philadelphia Eagles, I really try to get him on board. If I was any NFL team, I'd really try to get him because I think that he can definitely add to a team that's already close to being there, when it comes to the wide receiving core.
Certainly. I think Torrey Smith adds a lot. I mean, he's fast. He's going to get you down the field. If somebody Carson Wentz can throw to down there, and then you have the other kind of intermediate guys you can throw to. Jordan Matthews, obviously, really good, and he's going to do that for you too, but not at the speed that Torrey Smith is. So I think you need to take that into account if you're Philadelphia, and that's why they're all talking to each other there. The game of the week. The San Diego Chargers come into the Georgia Dome, and they upset the Falcons in overtime. The Falcons had to make a heck of a defensive play to knock the ball out of Antonio Gates' hands to prevent the touchdown. The Chargers got away with looked like another one of those pass interference penalties on Julio Jones, who got 174 yards in this game. Phillip Rivers went crazy. Melvin Gordon, 3 touchdowns, Gary. Geez, Melvin
Wow.
Gordon just keeps outdoing what he did last year. Man, you watch the, you're kind of the Chargers are one of your teams for this year, and we have a friend that listens, and she likes to poke at you. I mean, they're winning. I feel like, a couple weeks ago we were sitting there ready to just say, okay, well, this season's over for the Chargers, and they're able to win just like that again.
Yeah, they are. And, what I like about the San Diego Chargers is that they've really overcome some of the things we talked about in preseason that they were not going to be good at, and that is their defense has actually stepped up. They were able to get key stops in that game. They were able to find a way to come back, and Melvin Gordon has been really, really impressive. He gets 2 touchdowns in this game, plus the receiving touchdown that makes 3 total. I just think that this guy is becoming a more well-rounded running back. I think he came into the league with not understanding how to catch up. I think it takes every rookie running back a learning curve to get to where they need to be in this game. We saw with Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, sure, he's leading in the NFL in rushing, but it did not look like that in the first 2 games. Trust me. And Melvin Gordon the same way, and I think that he's going to continue to impress. But saying all that, I mean, San Diego has really overcome the obstacles that I think all of us believed that they were going to have trouble getting away from. So, I mean, overall, you've got to be happy with them. But still, the one thing I look back on, and I said this when we did our blurbs for our power rankings, and that was the fact that I really feel like San Diego's not consistent. They're a good team. They're a very average team, but they're not great and they're not terrible. They're just right there in the middle, and that's because they're not consistent in every game.
Well, they're a microcosm of the whole NFL. The whole NFL
yes, they are.
is not consistent.
Yep, you're right.
Every week we're talking about a team loses that won the week before. I mean, the Patriots are kind of, they're the sign of consistency, really, and maybe the Seahawks or whatnot, but it's just like, and the Cowboys have been able to do that as well, but it's like, man, every time we're talking about, well, that team lost last week, they won this week. I mean, how the hell do you cover a league like this? I don't know. But just to put it all in perspective, that Sunday night game, Gary, let me tell you, I watched the whole thing, and I was wishing I didn't.
I know.
Man, 2 kickers missed field goals from within 30 yards. You go to in overtime, and they tie. I mean, the defense has played great, and they neither team really deserved to lose, using a soccer term here, but man, this...
Yeah, exactly. That's what it was. And you know what? I mean, I've heard people have different thought process on it. They hated it because there was no scoring, and then you have the guys who love the game so much, and they love the fact that this game was about defense and the fact that it took every inch to get to where they had to get to win this game. And both teams were pretty equal when it comes to defense, and that's why you ended up with a tie. And not only that, you had 2 kickers who just couldn't seem to hit their mark at the end of this game when it mattered most. And you'll look at it and you can totally understand the frustration. But man, let's just say that the coaching staff of the Arizona Cardinals was really pissed off about this one, probably more so than Pete Carroll.
Yeah, I mean, Bruce Arians was mad about this. He was not happy about this in the press conference. He was telling Catanzaro, like, dude, this isn't high school, baby. You get paid to make them.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're Catanzaro at this point, you need to be tightening those screws and make sure you kick them in. Just because the Cardinals absolutely own more than you.
The fact that I never know what's going to happen, and that's fine. But you got like we were talking about, some inconsistencies and some things like that. So I think this week has proven that you never know any given Sunday. But it also depends on what kind of football fan you are too. There's some football fans who are still not impressed by this type of football. But I don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with the fact that you've got those situations where you're going to have guys who do amazing one week and don't do so great the next. So parity's great, but I get it. I get where you could be frustrated.
Yeah, certainly. Week 8 is going to be interesting. We'll be talking about that obviously on the Thursday show along with the Thursday night game. The Thursday night game is that ever excellent Jacksonville Jaguars and Tennessee Titans here. They have this every freaking year. Who you got?
Thinking about this, it's tough. It really is, because I think both teams are pretty similar. I think that they have a little bit more of a chance when it comes to Jacksonville.
Quarterbacks that have issues.
You have defenses that are on and off, who don't stay consistent, who are just kind of there. I'm going to give this to Tennessee because I think the running game is better, and I think that if they can control the clock, they can win this game. And that is saying that Blake Bortles doesn't get hot. If Blake Bortles gets hot, I don't think Tennessee has much of a shot. But Blake Bortles hasn't shown it yet, so I'm not going to believe he's going to do it now.
I can't go with Jacksonville on anything right now. I can't. Every time I pick them to do anything, they go out there and they lose. And it's just like, I know they beat the Bears or whatever, but that was barely, So I have no faith in them right now. I got to go with the Titans, who at least you can sort of have some faith in. You got DeMarco Murray there. Mariota, if he's on, he can be good. And that defense, again, when they're on, they can be good too. They've been off quite a bit too. But let's get into for me, looking at those power rankings, I had Dallas going up to 3 for me, and then they wound up being 3, I think, in our overall. Seattle in that 4 spot. Did we move Minnesota down? I think Minnesota wound up being 2, and New England wound up going at that number 1 spot because they lost or because they won. I don't know. We probably did switch Minnesota down, but still sort of those same teams. I was, again, with Dallas deserving to be that high, you think? They are 5-1, but you're looking at a 3 or 4 for them.
Thinking about that, and put things in perspective, I get it. A lot of people are not really thrilled about that being the case, that Dallas is that high. I know people, the first thing they point to is the fact that their running game is just not their defense is not the top quality defense like some of these others, like Denver, like Minnesota. But some of these other teams don't have the top offensive ability like Dallas does. And I think that's where people are missing the boat. For me personally, I think I had actually put Denver up there. I put the New England. I think I put Denver second, Dallas third, and I think Minnesota, or maybe I put Dallas fourth, Minnesota maybe third. I don't remember. But all that matters now is I'm looking at the top teams, and besides the Patriots, the Seahawks are so inconsistent with Russell Wilson being injured. And then you go down from there, and there's inconsistency to the entire league. The Eagles are right there next to Dallas, if you ask me. And I think Dallas is still the most efficient when it comes to offense. So, yeah, I think they deserve to be in the 3rd or 4th spot. Does their defense really do anything for me? No, it doesn't. But guess what? The offense actually helps the defense.
Certainly. That's the thing, the way they play.
Yeah, and they turn the ball over. That's the one thing that the Dallas Cowboys are playing kind of like they did in 2014. They're getting takeaways. So that's something else that people need to look at. That's it.
Well, moving on to the college spectrum here. Some right off the bat, Ohio State going down to Penn State, shaking up some of the rankings here. Ohio State only goes down to 6th. They went down to 7th in our rankings. We had Nebraska. We had a couple more vote Nebraska over Ohio State, which probably in hindsight, you're looking at it, probably not right. But Nebraska is undefeated, so yeah. Every other one of the big teams kind of won, except for Houston got absolutely decimated by freaking Southern Methodist University, Gary. I mean, like, what?
I know. I never saw that coming. I just didn't.
I don't think anybody saw that coming.
Oof. It's amazing. And I have to say that, when it comes down to it, there is some understanding that, really the Houston Cougars have been in a kind of a slump. But I think this should have been an easy win for the Houston Cougars. And for them to do this, wow. I just am kind of dumbfounded by it. But, I mean, that's it's the breaks, and this is going to knock them way out of whack. And I know the coaches poll still had them involved, but I don't think they deserve to be in any kind of top 25 rankings at all.
I don't think they deserve to be either. They wound up not being in ours. Smartly, most people did not even have them voted at all. And now this is prime real estate for either Navy or South Florida, and they play each other on, I think it's Friday, for them to take a hold. One of them to take a hold of this American Conference and be that top group of 5 team, as long as except unless Boise State or Western Michigan keep being undefeated, which they both are right now. Boise State again deciding they want to play, heart attack theater with the fans. I mean, if you're, I know Navy got in, South Florida almost got in, but they lost, and they lost badly to Temple. I mean, they really shouldn't have lost to Temple, but I mean, yeah, if you got to pick one to kind of now be that leader of the division, I'm almost going, I feel like I have more faith in Navy right now.
Yeah, Navy really has impressed, and I kind of feel you on that. I think that they've done a lot to showcase that, they're a team to be reckoned with, and people need to pay attention. So, yeah, I think I'm right there with you.
On that other end of the spectrum, Oklahoma got into a big old shootout with Texas Tech. 66 points, Gary. 7 touchdowns for Baker Mayfield. Joe Mixon, I think, got 3, 1 passing and 2 on the ground. Almost 263 yards. I mean, only eclipsed by Joe Williams getting 332 on UCLA, which is ridiculous. I mean, do you feel like we're finally getting now that Oklahoma's out of the playing 2 tough teams, and now they're into the conference, you feel like Oklahoma could still win the Big 12 now, or is it still Baylor? Is it Navy of West Virginia?
I don't think Oklahoma is good enough still. They should have beat Texas Tech, and if they were a better team, they would have completely stopped Texas Tech from scoring.
Defense.
That's exactly the problem. They're not going to stop Baylor, and they're probably not going to stop West Virginia with that defense that they have. So that's kind of where I was getting to. I get it. People will still want to keep Oklahoma in there somewhere in the mix, but I think it's really going to come down to West Virginia or Baylor.
And those two do meet at the end of the year. Imagine if both of them are undefeated at that point. That's going to be really hard if if, say, Alabama loses or Washington loses, which I don't think they'll lose to Utah. I think Washington's going to wind up taking care of Utah, honestly. Or who Clemson loses, which they could lose to Florida State next week, or this week coming up here. You can see a scenario. I think West Virginia makes a case for. I think you got to put them in, or Baylor makes a case and you got to put them in. I mean, unless all 4 of those teams go undefeated, I just don't see how you can say no. We have an undefeated team and they're not getting in.
Yeah, that is the kind of the difficult part because you could sit there and try to make the case that they don't deserve it, and try. But when they're undefeated, I mean, what else can you do? There's not much you can say, so you gotta kind of go off of the other aspects that maybe kind of bring it down to earth. But man, you're right. I just don't know how you can do it. I don't know how you can say that they wouldn't deserve it.
I mean, if you do that, you're gonna have people talking about that. Having 6 teams in the playoff again, or 8 teams, and I don't think the Power 5 don't want that, because if they ever do more than 4 teams, you know what happens, Gary?
What's that?
The NCAA now owns the college football playoff instead of the Power 5.
Ooh, yeah, they would hate that.
Yeah, because they want that control so that they can keep all the other teams out of their precious playoff, which is ridiculous. But, some stupid idiot decided to think of how we're going to do this. I mean, honestly, you wish you could live in a landscape where all these college teams are equal, but they're obviously not, and they're not going to be unless the NCAA were to ever step in. The thing is, though, these Power 5 conferences are so big and powerful, and they got all the money that if they really threatened to go do things on their own, they probably would. Right? I mean,
yeah, they would. And that's exactly what would happen, and it would become a huge issue. And only, once again, it's about power, it's about money. And, when it comes down to any of those things, people will be, get their way if they can. And so I get it, and it's an issue, but I think they still need to think about the fans too, because that's really what they get their money.
How much faith do you have in Auburn? I mean, they did lose to 2 top-ranked teams that they've lost to, and then they whooped Arkansas.
Yeah, Auburn's tricky for me because I really think that they're a decent team. And I think that they're a team that people should watch out for. But I just don't know if they can get into a major dog fight and win. I think they've beaten the teams they should have. I think them beating Arkansas was huge because Arkansas is a very talented team, but they also got a chance to play Arkansas at home. So, things have kind of fallen in their favor. But at the end of the day, if they got into a big bowl game against a major team, I just don't think that they would have that same success.
I mean, they got a nice schedule here before they face Alabama. They're at Ole Miss, which is kind of hard to play. But Ole Miss is kind of in shambles at this point. They've lost, they lost to Arkansas. They lost again last week. Then they got Vanderbilt, Georgia, who's also kind of up and down. They got a cupcake team, and then they play Alabama. So, I mean, that Iron Bowl is going to be huge for Alabama. If they get all the way down there, still ranked number 1, Auburn's going to want to be playing them tough at that point.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, how much faith do you give LSU after they go and beat Ole Miss for Alabama in a couple weeks? I mean, with Fournette back, do you give LSU a chance, or do you think Alabama's rolling them too?
I think that, Ole Miss is a really, I really like the way that they played this year. They've had some struggles at times, but it really was against some really good teams that they've had the struggles against. But I don't know. I don't think anybody really at the end of the day is going to matter because, Alabama's going to roll them all.
Yeah. I mean,
But,
if there was a team that has proven they are number one, it's Alabama. Every time they come in here, we go, oh, man, they're going to play this nasty schedule. What do they do? Just roll people. So who cares?
Yeah. So, I mean, LSU is a team that has been kind of disappointing, but they've kind of turned things around to an extent. They got Leonard Fournette back. But, man, I still think that Ole Miss is dangerous. They need to watch out for them.
Let's say you do have 4 undefeated teams or whatever. Let's say Ohio State beats Michigan, and you have some of these. You have Washington undefeated. You have a Baylor or West Virginia undefeated. You have a Clemson, and you have an Alabama. Could you see them putting Ohio State in there still over one of these, or?
It would not surprise me because they would consider the strength of schedule. And I think that's where the issue would come about. And I think that's why one of the teams would miss out even if they were undefeated. This is no surprise. We've seen this in the past. And I just don't think that they would knock out a major money team like Ohio State to put a team in that really, let's be honest, doesn't draw as much.
Yeah, and I think this is where Washington's going to suffer because they haven't had a strong schedule. I think if it's Baylor over West Virginia, that's the thing with Baylor is running into that problem. At least West Virginia has played teams when they were ranked or teams that are on that fringe when they've played them and they beat them. So that's kind of a hard to make. But I'm like you, Ohio State's such a big name that if that comes into, Washington or, one of the Big 12 teams, they're probably going to put Ohio State in because they're Ohio State. And look at the Big Ten. Some of the, Wisconsin's been doing really well, and Nebraska undefeated right now. I mean, Nebraska and Wisconsin play each other. Man, this is where I think Wisconsin stays of either every time one of these big, it really gives Ohio State a huge boost if Nebraska gets knocked off.
Yeah, and I agree. And, I just don't think that Nebraska is strong enough, just like you, when it comes to facing a defense that Wisconsin has. And, you got to be happy for the organization for where they've come. I don't know if everybody was really thinking that they were going to be ranked at all this year. But they got there and they did it, and, good for them. But at the end of the day, they're starting to get into the meat and potatoes of this, and I just don't think they're a strong enough team to deal with that.
Okay, so we'll end with this. I mean, I know that the Louisville plays some cupcake teams, or they're playing not the strongest teams in the ACC. They lost one by a touchdown, and they whooped Florida State. I mean, if Lamar Jackson keeps on putting up 400-plus yards and 4 touchdown games, he's got to be there at the end of the day when you get to that Heisman night and they're picking whoever it is, right? I mean, it doesn't matter that he plays for Louisville and they're not going to get in the playoff probably.
Every year I struggle with this because so many times I feel like the true Heisman winner is not picked. I think a lot of times it's a guy that they kind of feel like, it would be nice to have him because he's from this school, and they need another guy from the Heisman Trophy winners. So yeah, let's do this, and kind of leave out some of the most talented guys. But I just don't know how they could ignore a guy like this, and they could. Trust me, we've seen it. But I think all the offensive power he's put forth, everything he's done, to me, he's still my favorite, and I feel like that he deserves.
Team.
Yeah,
he is that. It's amazing to me. Like, he is that team, and against the big teams, he's played really well.
Well, you look at guys like Vince Young. Guys like Vince Young, who that was the team. I mean, for the most part, Vince Young was the Texas Longhorns the year they beat UCLA. And no, USC, excuse me, USC. And I just think that, he didn't get picked because, well, they had different thought process. And I'm not sure if it was Reggie Bush. Maybe it was Reggie Bush who got picked to be the candidate.
Bush.
Yeah,
then, Vince Young wound up winning it by default.
By default, but see, and that's because he probably should have deserved to win it, but they wanted to go with the guy they kind of thought was the sexier pick. Which let's be honest, Reggie Bush was the sexier pick that year. So I mean, that's just the way things work. It's all politics.
Oh, certainly, and I mean, it hurts a lot that Houston kept losing because now that was their other big team that they had to play, and now it's not such a big deal, But I think, I don't know if there's anything else you kind of want to discuss about the college week or,
And for the most part, I mean, I think we're going to be talking more about it this week. And, I think that, we've got a lot of cool matchups coming up still. I think there's
this week coming up is amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right.
This week coming up is freaking great. You got Florida State and Clemson, Michigan State and Michigan again, and you know how crazy that game was last time. You got that Navy South Florida game on Friday, West Virginia Oklahoma State. That's gonna be fun. I mean, just some terrific Washington, Utah, Baylor in Texas, Florida, Georgia, Wyoming beat Boise State last year, so that's going to Nebraska, Wisconsin, Auburn, Ole Miss, Tennessee, South Carolina, Clemson, Florida State. I mean, just some dynamite games we're talking about here. Talk about our pick'em that's going to be a terror.
Oh, I know. Not looking forward to that.
Which one do you put at the 1? And which one do you put at the 10? Because it's like, damn. How do you pick this?
It's almost like you don't want to.
No, you really don't. But I'm glad the AP poll finally put West Virginia at number 10 or more because they deserve it. They've been beating teams. They've been beating them pretty good too. So, at least holding them down from points. So I think they kind of deserve it there. Anything from like the polls or anything else before we get out of here?
No, I think we're pretty much ready to get out of here. Just like so excited about this weekend, and everybody hopefully will get a chance to hear us really just break this thing down Thursday.
All right, so until then, everybody, we'll see you back on the Friday morning show talking about college football, and of course we'll have another one talking about previewing NFL Week 8. Until then, check out W2Net.com. We do have that full top 25 poll out there. We'll have the power rankings for you sometime on Wednesday. And then we also have other content up there, wrestling content, games content, other things for you. So until then, everybody, we'll see you later.